Hey everybody, it's Ed. I just wanted to welcome you back to the channel. It's great to see all of you here. Been a very busy week and a half for me. We obviously had some hiccups with the E-Team stream, but it looks like we're back on for this coming Sunday, so please join us there. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. Everything you do on the channel, whether it's like, subscribe, comment, all of that is very helpful. Just wanted to take a minute and talk about the most recent communication from Supernote. I know I'm a little late on this. I did put a public post on my Patreon page and just wanted to share a little bit more of that with you and talk a little bit more about why it's important that they sent out the communication they did and also why I think they're kind of a fine line here. I think they can go one of two directions and I really hope they choose a specific one. And you'll see that kind of from what I wrote, but I wanted to explain it a little bit more in detail. So we're going to spend just a few minutes, walk through the actual document they sent, the actual announcement. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I'm going to highlight a few key points. And then I just look forward to hearing from you in the comments. What do you think? What direction do you think Supernote should be going? But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump over and see what we can see. Here we are on the page, and I think it's really important to put this in context. This was not easy for Rada to come out with. A lot of people were very disappointed, very vocal in the community. Unfortunately, I think that almost daily they were sending barrages of emails to Rada saying, oh, it's the second day of September. Oh, it's the 15th day of September. Oh, it's the 20th, and they just kept going. And on Reddit there was almost a post sometimes daily that there was just a ton of stuff happening. And I think it was really important for them to put out a communication but also to be realistic. And there's even now, since this announcement has come out, there are still posts saying, well, what's the price going to be? When's it actually going to be out? I think at this point it's better for them to put out a quality product and to do it on their own timeline than to rush it. I've had that viewpoint for a while. I think the thing that hurt them the most, and I've heard others talk about this as well, is stopping selling the A5X. And quite frankly, I don't think that was in their control. They moved to a new chipset and they moved to new components. When they put that into the A6X2, they just needed a new frame. And my guess, I don't know for sure, but I think the way the modularity is set up, the new chipset I don't think would fit in the old casing for the A5X. Now, again, I have no way of knowing that, but based on their communication, the reason that they were moving was because they couldn't source the components anymore for the A5. X and the A6X2 had newer components and they thought they would be completely compatible with the upcoming A5X2. And then they hit delays. And I think that's what hurt them the most. Right now, if they were still selling the A5X, I think they would have good sales, just like Remarkable has for their Remarkable 2 platform. But again, I don't know for sure. So let's look at here. And I think their title is important too. They say, we're closer to the carrot. And the carrot analogy, at first, a lot of us, especially through the Western lens, think of the carrot and the stick approach. This idea of dangling a carrot and a stick, whether you're doing good or bad. But they're really kind of taking that analogy of the carrot as in something to strive for, something to go after. And the first thing they do is they open with an apology and they talk about kind of how they work. You can read my post on Patreon, and I quote quite a few passages from here, and I do encourage you to read this post on Reddit. But one thing I do want to highlight is they talk here about what I just mentioned, which was every time they think they're about to grab it, they trip and fall. When we look up, the carrot has moved a few steps further away. This idea of being transparent enough to say we pushed too hard. And they go on in the next paragraph to even talk more about that, how engineers by nature are optimistic. They're always striving for the next best thing. They're always trying to do something new and innovative and cool and fresh. And sometimes our, desires and wants get ahead of ourselves. And I explain that a little bit more in the Patreon piece, but Truly, I think it's really important for us to not lose sight of the fact that there's a human component and a human element to this. For Supernote to be able to come out and say that and be humble, quite frankly, is the way I read it. Now, you may all have your own interpretations, but I think that for my understanding, this is them saying we reached too far and we just couldn't hit the deadline we set for ourselves. The only thing that really concerns me is this idea that they understand how important their community is. They understand how supportive overall the community has been. And quite frankly, I don't think that the community as a whole is really upset with them right now. I think you have a vocal minority who are really being loud and attacking them for moving the target. Don't get me wrong, there's some criticism to be had. They've had some marketing missteps. I've been very vocal about what I think they could have done differently. But what I don't want to have and what I don't want to see is them cocoon themselves and only announce, which is how they presented here, when the product is ready. One of the biggest things for them has been transparency in the process. Here's what we're working on. Here's why we're working on it. We want to share a roadmap with you. We want your input as a community. Those types of things are what has gotten them this much of a following. If they pull back too far on that, they risk losing everybody. I think they need to strike a balance between sharing enough information about the cool and innovative and awesome things they're doing, but not set deadlines that they're not confident, very confident that they can meet. And I think that's what separates them from the pack. Books is releasing nonstop. Remarkable doesn't tell you until it's already out. So I really hope that they don't do that. Now, one thing that's promising here, they talk about releasing the videos and early inventory and what they're going to do. But one thing that's really interesting is this last sentence where it says, "This time we will not offer pre-orders. Our goal is to have products ready for delivery." So I think that's an interesting take. Even when they did the pre-order phase, they were shipping devices during the pre-orders. So some people were getting their devices within a week, even though it was technically on pre-order. But I think it's important that they're saying this time we're going to skip that phase. We're going to stock up right after the holiday. We're going to have things ready to go. We're going to have devices ready to go. And we're going to start shipping the minute we open this thing up for orders. To me, that's a positive sign. It shows growth for them. It shows that they're willing to pivot and change the way that they've traditionally done some things to make it more accessible and more competitive. A lot of these companies are competing and they're shipping immediately. This will put them in that space. But that's what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to take a few minutes, talk quickly about what this means, why it's important. I do encourage you to go read my article over on Patreon. It's in the free public tier, so you don't have to worry about signing up. But, I kind of walk through this in a little bit more depth in some areas. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and hop back over to our discussion. All right. So to me, and just to sum this up and put a bow on it, I think what Rada is doing is what they've always done, which is be transparent. They're not going to release a device that's half baked. They're not going to release a device just because people are clamoring for it, but they are going to listen. And they were listening to a lot of pushback and a lot of concern. And I don't even know if it was a lot as far as how many people or if it was a lot in just the amount of messages that were being sent by a small minority. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter. It shows what kind of company they are because they're listening to that minority. They're not saying 80% of our people are happy and they're supporting us, so we're just going to ignore you. They wanted people to know that they'd been heard and they wanted to have a conversation. The biggest mistake they could make would be to crawl into a cocoon and not communicate anymore. I'm really hoping they don't do that. I wrote them an email saying that. Please do not, shelter yourself. Don't put up a walled garden around your company. that will not serve you well. It's too hyper competitive of a market, and Remarkable already has that kind of a culture of waiting a while before they do things. Books just throws devices out a lot. Again, they're good products. They're not my product. They're not something that I would want to use, but everybody's different. But Supernote is the only one that puts their roadmap out in public. They're the only one who really puts user suggestions into practice in their beta updates front forward. And with that Trello roadmap, you can see what they're developing, what they're working on, and what they're prioritizing. Anyway, thank you so much for being with me. Again, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you think I'm off base. Let me know if you think that I'm being too easy on the company. I don't think if you look at my videos, you'll see that. You'll see that there's been critiques, but there's also been support. And I think that's primarily because I feel like they've supported me as a device owner for the last 3.5 years. And also even as someone who reviews their products and talks about them. They never ask me to say anything in particular, but they do value my opinion. And I'll scroll here on the screen a list of current members, and I do have one supporter in the supporter tier. So I'll have everybody's name going up on the side here. Feel free again, reach out, let me know what your thoughts are. And until next time, I will see you soon.